Hello, I'm Simon.
And I'm Dan.
And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes us to a random article and we talk about what we find. Daniel, what are we talking about this week?
This week, Simon, we're talking about England in the late Middle Ages.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it might be the largest Wikipedia article we've ever had.
We had a very long one, I remember, for Suleiman the Magnificent. Or there was a sultan that we ended up talking about, and that was huge. But interesting. Well, before we get into the article, Dan, is there something that we should say?
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Woo! It's only the
I think we're very timely
February.
with this episode.
Yes, very good. Anyway, England in the late Middle Ages, Simon.
So, okay, late Middle Ages. Now, in my head, the late Middle Ages in England ended with the Battle of Bosworth Fields. I think that was what I was taught in school. So 1485.
Yes.
Is that what this article uses?
Yes. So the accession to the throne of the Tudor dynasty. But to start, we've got the history of England during the late Middle Ages covers from the 13th century, the end of the Angevins. The Angevin kings?
Angevins, yeah.
Yeah. And the accession of Henry III, considered by many to mark the start of the Plantagenet dynasty.
Plantagenet.
That's the one. Until the accession to the throne of the Tudor dynasty in 1485, which is often taken as the most convenient marker for the end of the Middle Ages and the start of the English Renaissance and early modern Britain.
It's because I read a fascinating book called The Hollow Crown about the Wars of the Roses.
Ooh, I saw that on an Instagram story. Who was reading The Hollow Crown? Gosh, only this morning. Before I got up to work. Yeah, that's so odd. Okay. Was it any good?
I thought it was fantastic. Oh, gosh. Hang on. Who wrote it? Because there's annoyingly, if you Google it, you get the TV show. Dan Jones. That's it. Ah. I'm not a historian. I've read a fair bit of history, sort of popular history, but not that much. But I thought it was really, really well written. It sort of presents It does two things very well. It presents a period of history as far more complicated than you think it is. Like, I think in my head, the Wars of the Roses was a war that was declared between York and Lancaster. They fought for a bit. There was a battle of Bosworth Fields, and then Henry VII becomes king. Bish, bash, bosh, done. And it wasn't. It was this really messy, complicated civil war that sort of started and stopped for like a century. And obviously, not even obviously, had loads to do with what England's possessions in France and how they were retaken, and like that whole messy bit of European history. The other thing it does very well is it's a very good like thriller. Like it's almost like Dan Brown. Like it's very quick and easy to read because you just want to know what happens next. So would highly recommend. And so I guess I have off the back of that a little bit of knowledge about this period, but not going back far enough, I don't think, for the whole period.
I need to read more. I forget how much I love. I think it's because when I was younger, and to an extent maybe still a bit now, I absolutely loved fantasy and high fantasy, and you can't really get much closer than sort of historical fiction, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just so gripping. In fact, not that this really is historic. Well, to an extent it is. Are you familiar with Kazuo Ishiguro's The Buried Giant?
I've heard of it, but I've not read it.
If you haven't read it, you absolutely need to read it. I finished it maybe like a month ago, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, I've read a lot of Ishiguro. I really, really like his work, but The Buried Giant, wow, what a book. I got into it to a similar level that I got into, what's that Huxley one I was talking about months and months and months ago?
Brave New World?
Yes, yeah. Just phenomenal. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm now on the lookout for some good sort of War of Independence or even going forward and go, like American frontier historical fiction. I'd love to get it because I loved American history when I was at school.
Yeah. I'd like to learn more about that, actually.
It's so immersive, you know? Like, I love it. It's the same reason why I love watching, what's it called? The Revenant. Because it's just so tactile, It's brutal and, in the wilderness. Love it.
You want the Oregon Trail in book form, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Or Little House on the Prairie, but a bit grittier.
Yeah.
I'm sort of doing the opposite at the moment. I'm reading a book by Kim Stanley Robinson called The Ministry for the Future.
Oh, right.
Which is a fictional version of the 2020s and what a version of global warming looks like. And it opens with the scene of a heat wave in India. And it's one of them, like, at the moment, my days are very long. Like, I get up at about 7, take baby for a bit in the morning, do a whole day of work, which finishes at like 6, cook dinner, do all the housework and stuff, finishes at about 8, put the baby to bed. That can take anything up to 4 hours. And then I have like a little bit of time at the end of the day where I can read, and I'll have the cat on my lap. And in that precious time, I was like, I'm going to try this Kim Stanley Robinson book. And I'd read about 20 million people dying in a week. And this is one of the most horrific openings to a book. And I was like, cool. I'm gonna go and try and go to sleep now.
Yes, yeah.
Like I think I may need to. Previously I was reading Over the Edge by Terry Pratchett, which was I really enjoyed it. Nice and light reading, and it's been a bit of a gear change. It's good, but I'm not sure it's necessarily the right book for me at the moment. But we sort of crashed into Critics Corner already. So hang on, tell me more about the England in the late Middle Ages.
There's so much. I mean, there's so much. I sort of don't really know where to begin. Let me read you a little bit of this article. So we ended with 1485 marking the start of the English Renaissance in early modern Britain. At the accession of Henry III, only a remnant of English holdings remained in Gascony, for which English kings had to pay homage to the French, and the barons were in revolt. Royal authority was restored by his son, who inherited the throne in 1272 as Edward I. He reorganised his possessions and gained control of Wales and most of Scotland. His son, Edward II, was defeated in, do you know the battle?
Edward II defeat. Can you give me the year?
1314.
Oh, God. Is that Cressy?
It's not Cressy. It begins with a B, and I don't mean battle.
Damn it. No, I'm afraid not.
Bannockburn?
Oh, I was thinking in France for some stupid reason. Of course it's Bannockburn. Yeah. Yes.
He was eventually deposed in a coup, and from 1330 his son Edward III took control of the kingdom. Disputes over the status of Gascony led Edward III to lay claim to the French throne, resulting in the 100 Years' War, in which the English...
Which lasted how long?
Not
100 years. It lasted like 80-something years. Yeah. Why is it called the 100 Years' War?
Well, I can tell you. Let's go on a tangent.
Is it just one of these, it's about 100 years, and it sounds more impressive than the 80-something year war? It's
just dangerous rounding up. Yeah, the 100 Years' War, in which the English enjoyed success before a French resurgence during the reign of Edward III's grandson Richard II. The 14th century saw, and has this for a century, the Great Famine and the Black Death.
Oh, boy. Well, there's that famous, like, the worst year to be a human. Was it in that century, or was it actually earlier? Worst year to be alive. Oh, no, it's 536. That was it.
Gosh.
Yeah, 536 was meant to be the worst year for a human to be alive because there was a volcanic winter. There was a big volcanic eruption, and it meant that average temperature plummeted, and everywhere had crop failures. And it was just seemingly absolutely awful. Gosh. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd take that or the Black Death, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of class, right, I would take famine, because if you had money, you could eat. Yes,
true.
And you'd be away to an extent from Black Death.
Do you think you'd be doing a middle class role in the Middle Ages? Would you be a court advisor? I could see you in a sort of that's I guess the version of a lawyer back then.
Are we saying that a court advisor was middle class?
Would you not say so?
I don't know. I don't know whether there were.
They're not aristocracy.
I don't know whether there was really much of a distinction between. I think it's probably a more binary system at that point. Do you not think?
Yes, you're probably right. I think there were probably elevated commoners. You know, people who had the favour of the court.
They didn't have elevators then, Simon. Come on.
No, well, awkwardly lifted by a rope pulley system, commoners.
Yeah.
And then the peasantry.
A sort of paternoster lift. Right. I wonder when the first paternoster lift was done.
I don't know. What's the difference between a paternoster and a dumb waiter?
I don't know, but I bet this punchline is going to be fab. Let's hear it.
Oh, no, that was a genuine question.
Doesn't a paternoster go literally, it actually goes round, whereas a dumbwaiter doesn't, it just goes up and down?
Yes, you're right.
A paternoster doesn't stop. It sort of, it has a sort of parabolic up and under.
Yeah, there's a diagram on Wikipedia here.
There's one at a university that's got grade 1 status.
Really?
I think it's somewhere like Liverpool or something that's still around.
So, even by our standards, Dan, this has gotten quite esoteric quite quickly. Although, actually, on the subject of university, I don't know, it was breaking news on the Wikicast. Whenever Fergus gets around to editing this one and I get around to reviewing it and releasing it, breaking news as of the time of recording, Unit 1 in Exeter is shutting down.
I heard. I saw just before we started recording.
Absolutely tragic.
I feel like we need to sort of sing a requiem or something.
Yeah, it really just Unit 1 was the club that we went to. Cheesy Tuesdays was the night of choice.
Well, I mean, Arena in my first year, in your time.
Yes, Arena as it should be called, but it was rebranded. And it's just, I think it's hit our group chat quite hard. I just brought it up because it's
the end of an era.
God, yeah. Think about our favourite times. Like that time I dropped £100 on shots because I didn't count how many people were in the group.
Yeah, well done.
I said, I want to buy everyone shots, and I just didn't count how many people there were, and it was over £100.
Good effort. Well done. I had an experience like that when I was this is years ago now. It must be sort of 5 years ago. But we were in London for something. I think possibly a carol service or something. And a group of us ended up going to Heaven, the club.
Oh, right.
Yes. There's a quite a famous gay club in London called Heaven. And it was very jolly, and this was my first time clubbing in London, and I was with maybe a group of 3 or 4 people. So, well, yeah, maybe 5 including me. And I said, right, this is great. Let's all do a Jaeger bomb. Thinking like, they'll have some deal on, 5 for whatever.
Yeah, they normally do. Yeah.
So anyway, I said I'll have 5 Jaeger bombs, barkeep. And this person was like, yeah, okay, pour them out. And then I got my phone out to do a contactless payment. And went beep, and it said, no, denied, it's too expensive for contactless. And I was like,
how much was it?
You're kidding. I have no idea. This was before they'd upped the limit, but I think it must have been something like, I think the limit then was maybe £30.
I think it used to be 35. I thought you meant it was after, then it was like because it's 100, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, you can do a frightening amount. And actually, if you use Apple Pay in an Apple store, there is no limit.
Oh, that's dangerous.
You could blip away 10 grand if you wanted to. And I'm sure many people do. But anyway, yeah, I think it probably, I don't know, maybe cost me sort of like 45, 50 quid.
Oh, that's not the one though, is it?
Which put a bit of a dampener on the evening. But then when the effects of the tonic kicked in, I was...
you were like, didn't seem such a problem anymore.
Happy as Larry, yeah.
I mean, we're not club-going people, it should be said.
Not really.
We didn't spend a lot of our time in clubs, but we have I at least have some very fond memories.
Oh, for sure.
Of going to Unit 1/Arena.
Yes. Our mission statement is pubs, not clubs. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's what we put above the door.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. In fact, that was that lovely when we last met. We went to that lovely pub just off Temple Station in London.
Oh, we did our own bit of Wikicast investigation.
Oh, we did.
There, didn't we?
You're
because now the pub was called it was named after an author, Edgar Wallace.
Yes.
That was it. And I'd not heard of this guy before. And we went there. I think it was a friend of yours recommended that we went there because it turned out it was quite cheap. And I was sat there and I was just like, Dan, who is Edgar Wallace? Because I have no idea. And the decoration was very strange. The decoration was like adverts for old pantyhose, like 50s adverts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then
sort of ladies' undergarments and things.
Yeah, and then there was the bust of the guy, as in his head. When we talk about undergarments, I feel like you do have to specify. It was his head and shoulders with a hat on it, I think. And I was like, who was this guy? And so we went on the Wikipedia, and it turned out that Edgar Wallace was the man who created King Kong.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But he was this interesting. We have an article we're supposed to be talking about, but we're going to talk about this guy instead. So he really interesting guy to sort of dissect from a historical perspective because he incredibly prolific. He wrote. Let me get the stats here. 18 stage plays, 957 short stories, over 170 novels, 12 of which he wrote in 1920 line alone. So this incredible output. But one of the things that he wrote was the character of King Kong, and I think he died before the film came out, but he originally worked on the script, and sort of was best known at the start of the century to most people as just this guy who wrote pulpy fiction. And the way that he wrote so much was, let me get this right, he narrated his words onto wax cylinders, so like taking a voice memo, and then his secretaries typed it up, and then he just basically refused to edit it. He was like, that's done. And apparently would sometimes, many of Wallace's successful books, this is from the wiki, were dictated like this over 2 or 3 days, locked away with cartons of cigarettes and endless pots of sweet tea, often working pretty much uninterrupted for 72 hours. Can you imagine that? Just sat there for 72 hours and just narrating a story, like thinking about it for a minute.
It's just phenomenal. Everything about that man and that pub, actually.
Yes.
Because it was really lovely and really well priced for London. It was
very competitively priced. Yeah. It was very good. The other thing to mention about this guy, though, is that George Orwell called him a bully worshipper and a proto-fascist. And if you do look at a lot of his stuff, it's like very colonial. And I can sort of see why he isn't read as much these days. But I feel like it's important to note that if we're going to talk about this guy and sort of the creation of King Kong, that there's a whole colonial overtone to the whole thing. And that he didn't seem to be a terribly pleasant man, but he had a very pleasant pub named after him.
Yeah.
Oh, he signed with my publisher, Hodder and Stoughton.
No way.
Didn't read that on the first thing. Oh, wow. We have the samesies.
That's crazy.
That's nice.
What a quirky connection.
But yes, the last time we were in a pub. The other thing we should mention if we're talking about our club going days was when we went to Timepiece on New Year's Day. Gosh, when would it have been? 2017?
Yes, it must have been because I started university in 2016, and it would have been the end of that following year. Yes.
So January 1st, 2018. I think. Or would it have been because I think I hadn't submitted my thesis at this point. Anyway, whatever. It was New Year's, and we went to a lovely.
Oh, hang on, I'm telling lies. I started university in September 2015, so it would have been
right.
It would have been December 2016, going into January 1st, 2017.
Yeah, God, do you remember when we thought 2016 was the worst that it would get?
Yeah, I mean that's crazy to think that. How old would I have been then? Because I turned 27 this month.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, which is nuts, right? So I would have been 19?
Yeah, this is even before your tag yourself at 21.
Yeah, which I did the other day. It was a photo of Hugo playing the saxophone, Edward playing the trumpet, and me playing an upside down Dyson Hoover.
Yes,
because I am a classy bird, as they say.
But we went to this very classy, actually, dinner hosted by the... was it the deacon? Or the dean?
No, he was then Dean of Exeter Cathedral.
Yeah, then Dean of Exeter Cathedral.
Jonathan Draper.
And we were there in black tie, and then we went clubbing with our good friend Lily afterwards. And I think my wife... I think Pixel Wife was there for that. But we got in for free because they thought we'd gone to the effort of wearing black tie, and so they gave us free entry into this really grimy pub.
Well, that whole evening was extraordinary because, the then Dean, and I imagine still is now, very distinguished man, very interesting, lovely voice, a really, really incredible orator.
Wonderful speaking voice.
And I remember sort of circulating around one of the sort of sitting rooms in the deanery on Exeter Cathedral Green Close, which was this enormous house with multiple sort of living rooms and at least sort of 6 or 7 bedrooms. It was a really silly but historic house. And I was sort of mulling about and ended up joining a conversation of some very interesting women. And I finished. I had a nice chat and blah blah, and I went away. And I think Jonathan came up to me and said, "How did you enjoy chatting to the women?" And I said, "Yeah, it was really interesting. What did they?" He said, "Yeah, they all do women's hour. They're the sort of women's hour team."
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that happened.
There were loads of really So for those who don't know, there is a program produced on BBC Radio 4 called Women's Hour, And it's been, it's been on the air since 1946.
Since the England in the late Middle Ages.
Yeah, but they were all fascinating, really lovely. But there was, there must have been so many interesting people in that house that night. But gosh.
Yeah, wow. That's one of those nights that I'd love to go back and relive.
Yeah.
Like there are a few days about like my wedding. Absolutely, I wish I could live. If I could live one day on like Groundhog Day for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'd absolutely pick my wedding. But there are some evenings like that I just yeah, that was fun. That was a really, really fun night. And we've cartwheeled away from the subject at hand, Dan. Tell me about England in the late Middle Ages. I mean, can you tell me about what was it like to socially? What were the social factors going on for the average person?
Okay, let me find government and society. Okay, you can choose some sections here. We've got governance and social structures, women, identity, and an article that links to a new page about Jews and the expulsion.
Oh, yes, because that was roughly when that was a whole thing I remember in the Hollow Crown about Jews being blamed for various problems.
Yeah, the Edict of Expulsion, 18th of July, 1290.
Yes. Yeah, that was it. Okay, give me the one that's social and governance.
Sure.
This feels like a choose your own adventure.
Yes, yeah. You've made the wrong choice. That's it. That's the end. Start again. On becoming king...
Yeah, turn to page...
In 1272, Edward I re-established royal power, overhauling the royal finances and appealing to the broader English elite by using Parliament to authorise the raising of new taxes and to hear petitions concerning abuses of legal governance. This political balance collapsed under Edward II, and savage civil wars broke out during the 1320s. Edward III restored order once more with the help of a majority of the nobility, exercising power through the Exchequer, the Common Bench, and the royal household. This government was better organised and on a larger scale than ever before, and by the 14th century the king's formerly peripatetic chancery had to take up permanent residence in Westminster. Edward used Parliament even more than his predecessors to handle general administration, to legislate and raise the necessary taxes to pay for the wars in France. The royal lands and incomes from them had diminished over the years, and increasingly frequent taxation was required to support royal initiatives. Edward held elaborate chivalric events in the effort to unite his supporters around the symbols of knighthood. The idea of chivalry continued to develop through the 14th century, reflected in the growth of knightly orders, including the Order of the Garter, grand tournaments, and round table events.
Because, right, when you think of chivalry, I think of that as being a more early medieval period thing. Like the code chivalric and sort of Arthurian legend and stuff like that. Like I think of that as the early and high Middle Ages. But it's so like blurry, isn't it? Like the idea of the Middle Ages just being from the fall of Rome in 480 something, whenever that happened, and 1485, like basically 1,000 years where we just put these broad categories onto it of that's early, that's high, and that's late, and it's like, well, it wasn't the same everywhere. And it's just a part of history that feels like at least we've stopped calling it the Dark Ages. Oh, that's true actually, because we'd call the Dark Ages from like the fall of Rome to the Battle of Hastings in the UK, so 1066, and then there's like a 400-year period where it's the Middle Ages. Because apparently if there was just a 500, 600-year span when nothing happened and everyone just got dumber, and that absolutely didn't happen.
Yes.
Oh, this is making me want to read more history, Dan. Why are you doing this to me?
The sentence here, the ideal of chivalry continued to develop through the 14th century.
Right.
Makes me immediately think of one of the texts I had to study in my first year of my undergrad degree was Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which is a 14th century bit of sort of verse, I guess, which has that, the basis for The Green Knight, the film.
Yes,
was based on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. But it's fab. Ooh, I didn't realise that Tolkien's done a translation of that.
Well, that was it. Fundamentally, Tolkien was a scholar.
Yes,
he was Anglo-Saxon, and he was specialised in the Anglo-Saxon period, I think, but also
how interesting.
Medieval. And actually, on the subject of the Green Knight, perhaps this is more suited for Critics' Corner, but not really. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Games Workshop has relaunched Warhammer Fantasy, and
I did not know this.
It's called Warhammer The Old World, and they've launched it with the starter box is either Tomb Kings, so for those of you who don't know, Egyptian skeletons led by mummies, or Bretonnians, who are chivalric, like questing knights, loosely sort of French knights. And one of the playable characters that they've brought back is a sculpt from, I don't actually know when, the mid-1990s, of the Green Knight. And he's a character that you can play in Warhammer.
That's cool.
And he has some very weird rules where it's like, because he's a ghost, he can't be hit by anything other than a magical weapon, but is like unstable. And if you beat him in combat just by having lots of people with him, you can make him crumble away, kind of thing. Very unusual. But like, it's very tempted, Dan. I'm very, very tempted to go back to Warhammer The Old World. It's another money pit that I can just see myself falling into.
I would absolutely love to do that.
Because you had a couple of Warhammer Fantasy models. What range was it? The Empire dwarves? What was it that you
had? I had the sort of classic dwarves and goblins. Was it? I think.
Oh, Battle for Blackfire Pass.
Yes, yeah. Which was great fun. And then I moved on to Dark Elves.
Yes. Ooh. Oh God, no, Dan, no. This is very dangerous.
Yeah.
This is very dangerous to talk about because I've been very good.
Lead me not into temptation.
Don't tempt me, Frodo. I said that to somebody yesterday who was like, "We could go to the shop next to Games Workshop," and I was like, no, I'm not doing that because I don't have the money to spend, but I will spend it anyway. I haven't bought models in quite a long time. I've been very restrained. I'm going to paint my models before I buy some new ones, but oh boy, oh Lord, the questing knights, and they've got new kits for the knights on foot that look incredible, and I'm just like, oh, I'm very tempted.
That would be cool.
Don't email in with people saying that you're playing Warhammer The Old World, because I just wanna, I want those blocks of infantry where you have to measure and get your angles right to get off side charges, and I'd be really tactical with it in a way that you're kind of not in 40k. The more I talk, the more I'm making myself want to do it.
Yeah, I'm actually on the Warhammer website right now, just looking.
I'm just looking, passing by. The new website is awful, by the way.
Yeah, it's really bad. They
did a big redesign recently, and I don't know who they got to do it, but they've done up Aaron. And it's good, and there's lots of multimedia, and it shows you cool animations and stuff. But yeah. Oh, so yes, so they've got them made to order. These old kits, like Bretonnian, like Knight on Pegasus. God, that's like a kit from the 80s. Some of these, I do like Bretonnian Lord with axe. With great weapon on warhorse, because if you look at this model, not only, I'll paint you a picture, dear listener. Imagine your typical medieval knight on horseback. He's holding in both hands a double-handed axe, and he's like, grrr! And interestingly, his horse is somehow also doing the same facial expression. But not only does he holding an axe, all of his heraldry on the panels of the horse are just axes, and then on his belt he's got a backup axe in case he runs out of his first axe. And it's like, I think this guy's just a psychopath. I think he's just like a slasher character, basically.
Amazing.
Oh my God. But the controversy around this is that they relaunched the Tomb King stuff, and some of those models, like the skeletons, are bad. They're chunky old models from the 90s that they've done much better since, and they're selling for like 2024 prices. And it's raised a few eyebrows. But Games Workshop are also making a boatload of money, so I don't think they're going to stop. Anyway, we roughly talked about Europe in the late medieval period, amongst other things.
I think we've covered most of England in the late Middle Ages, yes.
We did justice to the article. But something else I would like to talk about is your choral piece of the week.
And this will be my piece of the week. Drum roll, please.
And I'd like to start, Dan, this section by saying, obviously, when you recommend things, I completely ignore it for the most part because I'm sane. But I did listen to Caroline Shaw's Partita for 8 Voices that you recommended in the previous episode. And I have been absolutely obsessed.
Oh, brilliant.
It's been on repeat. The Courant, I've listened to the other movements, but the Courant is incredible. And if people haven't haven't heard it, go back to the previous episode. There's a link in the show notes. Go and listen to it. There's a Spotify link, or you can just search it on Apple Music. It's incredible. So I just wanted to say on the record, Dan, thank you for introducing me to this piece of music because it is extraordinary. And I'm no pressure now for this episode's recommendation, obviously.
Well, I think, you know what, I haven't really been doing much singing at all, really. I was filling in at All Saints Margaret Street in London, which is a very lovely church.
Oh, nice.
As a favour. And we sang there For Lo I Raise Up.
Lovely. Stanford.
Classic, Stanford, yeah. And Herbert Howell's Collegium Regale Eucharist service, which is sort of great because it's all of the recognisable motifs from the canticles and the sort of Te Deum, but moved into a mass Eucharist text context.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was a Eucharist sort of reskin of it.
It's really good. So the Gloria, for instance, is just the classic. It basically sounds like the start of the Te Deum. We praise thee, O God. We acknowledge. It's just like glory be to God on high. That was quite fun, but I don't know whether I really have. Sadly,
I have a suggestion if you want one for something that we sang together recently, because we sang a Handel's Messiah.
We did
in London, in Battersea. Unfortunately, I came down feeling really quite unwell, and I lost my voice completely.
Oh yeah, you did.
Basically, I sang the first part, and then we got to in the interval, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I've got to go," because I was also filming the subsequent week, and just my voice went, and it was awful. But in the rehearsal, Michael made the mistake of letting us sit together.
Yes.
Which was very funny, and we had a very good time.
Excellent.
But specifically, there was the movement in the Messiah, I think it's part 3, since by man came death.
Yes.
We took it upon ourselves to sing in the rehearsal, I should point out, not in the actual performance, as since by man came Jeff.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of the poignancy away from it, doesn't it?
It just sort of broke us a bit.
Yeah.
Because also the death angle of it is like there's a real emphasis put on that word. Like, since by man came Jeff. Like the J just stood out over everyone else, and it really tickled me.
Yeah.
So should we just put Handel's Messiah as this week's choral piece of the week?
Yeah, well, why don't we put Handel's Messiah since by man came death? But yeah, brackets Jeff. Like, do it as like an NEE Jeff,
Oh, nay, Jeff. Incredible.
Perfect. Okay, well, there you are. Choral piece of the week. Since by man came death, nay, Jeff. Bosh.
Hopefully other people find that funny. I mean, to be fair, that's the theme for the whole podcast, isn't it? It's just us laughing our asses off but at each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, apparently over 1,000 people like this. So.
Well, Simon, I think we should jump into Critics' Corner.
Absolutely. I've got a lot to say in Critics' Corner. So, Dan, in the mornings we have a routine. I wake up, scream at my continued existence, and then I check on the baby. And she has been doing this wonderful thing recently where I go and like loom over her if she's awake and she's just sort of wide-eyed looking at the world. And if you're lucky, she'll look at you and it's like the first thing she's seen in the day, and she just breaks out into the biggest smile.
Yeah.
And it is the cutest thing in the world. And then I pick her up and take her downstairs, or change her, take her downstairs so that Pixel Wife has a bit of time to herself.
Change her for what?
Change her for a new model.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, gotcha.
I've got a 128 gigabyte baby now.
Nice. What the hell?
And we watch CBeebies in the mornings.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for those of you who are not from the UK, CBeebies is television programming that is aimed at children under the age of 6. There's CBBC is the older one that's for like kids up until they're kind of teenagers. Don't know why I went West Country there.
I don't know why you did at all. What a bizarre, extraordinary thing that happened.
I don't know why that
Can we just take a moment to that was amazing.
CBBC is the older one that's for like kids up until they're kind of teenagers. Don't know why I went West Country then.
I don't know why you did at all. What a bizarre, extraordinary thing that happened. There's so much to unpack there. What about teenagers caused you to return to your your like country bumpkin roots? Also talking about CBBC, which is not remotely bumpkin.
I guess it's because when I was a teenager, that's what all the teenagers around me sounded like teenagers.
Okay. Well
their family lives up on a hill, sells logs. Anyway, they've been taking over all the categories at the Chelwood Village Show. Best marrow 5 years in a row. No one else can get a look in. Gold medals across their tabletop. Anyway, that's basically a conversation I had with my mate John.
Everyone and their mums packing reindeer.
Yeah, like who?
Farmers.
Who else?
Farmers' mums. Very good.
So good. Anyway, so watching CBeebies, and I have very strong opinions about kids' TV, Dan. Like, there are certain shows that we've done this for a couple of weeks now, and it's the same things that will be on in the mornings. Some things are fantastic, and I actively look forward to it. And I was sad this morning because we missed Bluey and we missed Hey Dougie. Those two are goated. They're fantastic kids' TV shows. But there are other shows that are a little later on that we've been seeing recently that just make me feel a bit sick. And I don't know what it is. There is a show called Messi Goes to Okido. And interesting, it's voiced, it's 3D animation. It's voiced by Adam Buxton, from the Adam Buxton podcast. And can I just ask you to Google that and tell me what you think of the character design?
Messi Goes to Okido.
Okido, yeah. O-K-I-D-O.
Ooh, I don't like it.
Right. It makes me feel quite physically uncomfortable.
I saw a video, though, the other day of the new Thomas the Tank Engine introduction, which is not models. It's an awful animated thing, and it's all poppy, and it's an absolute travesty.
Well, there's a new thing. There's what they call Chugga. Oh no, I've got a Chugga Train CBeebies. Chuggington. Yes, that sounds right. Hate Chuggington. If you were to attach a magnet to the body of the Reverend Veer W. Audrey,
right,
you could generate enough electricity to power the world by his spinning in his grave.
Yeah.
It's oh god, it's no Thomas the Tank Engine. My child is going to grow up with Thomas, not this Chuggington. But anyway, yeah, I just sent you a thing of the character design on Discord for like the villagers for Okido, and it's the mouths are too high up, my eyes are too big. I feel sick looking at it. I'm not going to lie. I actively dread when that show comes on. There's also a really terrible 3D animation of Peter Rabbit.
Right.
It's just really dated.
Oh my god, that's hard. That's absolutely awful. Also, the real teeth.
Yeah. Why? Right. So, can you describe the character? Because I'm biased here, but can you describe the main character and why it is so uncomfortable to look at?
So, if you sort of don't look at the head, the body and tail is sort of like a kid's version of Sully from Monsters Inc.
Yeah, I get that.
You know, like Sully as a 7-year-old. You then move up towards the bonce, and it's enormous. The eyes are very wide apart, and they've been given a sort of realistic sheen, you know, as if to imply that the eyes are sort of wet, and they're, you know, the light glances off them, which is totally at odds with how light and physics is working on the sort of body, I think. You've then got just a sort of almost normal human mouth with a very, very thin lip, which just looks
and individual
crazy.
Teeth.
Yeah, and individual teeth.
It's awful.
It's horrid. It's absolutely horrid.
If readers of the podcast have children, if they watch CBeebies or sort of kids' TV, can you please message in if you have shows like this that give you a visceral reaction?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if people aren't aware as well, Hey Dougie is fantastic. It's voiced by Alexander Armstrong, noted friend of the podcast.
Oh, yes.
And Bluey, which is Australian and is like famously very, very good and very, very well written. And yeah, there is really good kids TV now. I'd actually go as far to say that kids TV now is significantly better than it was when we were younger. Like the production quality and the writing is so much better now.
It's interesting you talk about Bluey.
Yeah.
Because when would it have been? It would have been in the sort of tail end of December.
Right.
And a friend of mine who was a year above me at school when I was at St Leonard's College in Melbourne was doing a sort of Europe trip and said, "Oh, we should catch up," which was a lovely idea. And I haven't seen her since I left Australia. So that was November, December 2014. Quite a long time ago. Anyway, it was really lovely catching up. She's doing really well. Yeah, and it was all great. But she was part of the Bluey touring live show, stage show. She was one of the puppeteers or something.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and she went all over, all over Australia. They toured the US. She was away for months and months and months. But that's how I know. I didn't really know, unsurprisingly, a huge amount about Bluey. But yeah, she was part of the touring sort of show. Amazing. I
thought you were going to say that she was one of the voice actors, and I was going to lose my mind.
Yeah, that would be quite cool.
Wow.
I think she may have voiced a character.
Don't tell me that.
In the live show, not in the television one. But I'll need to ask.
Oh right.
Yeah, I don't think she knows that I do this podcast. So maybe a way of me letting her know that this is a thing that I do is saying I spoke about you. But yes. Really interesting.
Here's 30 minutes of loose discussion about England in the late Middle Ages, but there's a little bit about Bluey, and we mention you. I'm sure that's the way to get someone into it.
When you start a new television series, and normally you've got to give the first episode a chance, and then it really picks up. What we're suggesting here is that just sit through the conversation about England in the late Middle Ages, because it really, really picks up with Bluey.
Yeah. But I do have another show that I would like to recommend. I think you specifically would probably enjoy it a lot. So the backstory for this, and this isn't children's TV. The backstory is I did some filming a couple of weeks ago in Brighton for. I'm not technically allowed to say what it's for, but it's for a TV thing. And the people that were doing the behind the scenes safety stuff had previously worked as the art department for a show called The Great Big Tiny Design Challenge.
Right.
And I'd never heard of this before, and based off the back of talking to them, I went and checked it out. This is a show, it's available on All 4 in the UK, where it's a bake-off style format. You have these contestants, one who's get eliminated every week until you're left with 2 in the final, who are building a doll's house. And every week, they do a different room of the doll's house. And it will be a specific room, like a living room or a bathroom, and it will be a specific time period. So they did like a Rococo entrance hall. They did an Edwardian games room, a Tudor bedroom type thing. And it's a 1/12 scale doll's house, meaning that if it's a foot in real life, it's an inch in the doll's house.
Wow.
And they split into teams, and they have like 12 hours or however long it is to make that room. They get given the blank template, and then they have to make everything that goes inside it. And it's hosted by Sandy Toksvig, who is clearly having the time of her life. She clearly is loving the project. And it's just really, we Pixel Wife and I binged the whole series. It's really good. It's really like gentle, sweet entertainment. But really, really enjoyed it. If people like model making, if you like sort of crafting and making stuff with your hands, or woodworking specifically, there's a lot of woodworking in the show, would highly recommend it. It's one of the most enjoyable things I've watched on TV in ages.
Cool. What a cool thing.
And they also, the reason I say you specifically might like it is because they do a sequence where when the rooms are finished, Sandy Toksvig goes into the rooms, by which she's obviously on a green screen stage, and they just composite her into the rooms as if she's walking around. And it's like, it's the Dan shot.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't they hire you for this?
Yeah.
They could have just, said, and now we send our reporter into the field to test out these rooms.
To be fair, that does sound right up my Strasser, and I imagine were I given the opportunity, I would host it very well.
Yeah, I think you'd absolutely smash it.
Yeah. What have I been watching? I've been rewatching all of House of Cards again. Because it's
the US version.
Yeah, because it's just phenomenal. Anything else that have you seen Maestro yet?
No, is it worth
With
watching?
Bradley Cooper. Yeah. I watched it with my partner, and we were both blown away by it. I thought it was really beautiful, an incredible performance, really, really interesting direction. Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, okay.
It was quite long, but it's a labour of love. So I think you can excuse the fact that it goes on a bit. But at no point did I think I was watching and I was just going like, oh God, come on, when is it going to finish? You know, I really enjoyed it, so I'd highly recommend it.
Oh, right. Well, I've not watched a film since the Christmas break. I just don't have any time.
No.
Anymore. Like, and it has tempted me, Maestro, because it's available on Netflix, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So watching that would be good. There's American. Oh, what's the one that Jeffrey Wright's got coming out? It's literally launching like the day we're recording this, I think. I saw some advertising for it the other day, and it does look right up my alley. American Fiction. That's what I was trying to think of.
Oh, right.
Because it's the older I get, the more I look at Oscar nominations, and I'm like, I haven't seen most of these. Yeah. Like, there was a time when I would have seen most of the films that have been nominated for the big categories, and I've got limited time. Because our friend Hugo did his reaction to like, well, this is who should win this category and this is who is going to win this category.
Yeah.
And I don't have time for that.
I really want to watch All of Us Strangers, the one with Andrew Scott and is it Paul Mescal?
Beats me.
Yeah, Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal. Andrew Scott, obviously, who you know who I mean by when I say Andrew Scott, right?
Moriarty, right?
He was Moriarty in the BBC Sherlock. Yeah, it's apparently absolutely amazing. I'd love to see that. I still haven't seen Atomic Bomb.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I'd love to, so I need to watch that. There's lots of things I'd like to see, but yeah, similar to yourself, I don't really have a great deal of time.
I feel like it's partly I don't have time, but also I don't know if it's a result of the pandemic, but the idea of going to the cinema as an activity just doesn't really, appeal anymore.
No.
I know, obviously, with kids it's more difficult anyway, but
yes.
Unless
it's a film that you need, so something like I regret not having been able to see Oppenheimer on, proper big full IMAX, for the visual spectacle, or similar. Like, I don't know if you're watching Avatar or something, where that visual spectacle is basically the reason you're going.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I actually just quite like watching things at home. I don't really,
I did, as soon as I said it, I did realise that there is the exception. I am definitely going to go and see Dune Part 2.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Definitely, that's the one thing on my horizon that.
Dunk.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's a common thing. Are people just genuinely not going to the cinema as much anymore? Because it does feel like there's been this decline in interest in stuff like the Marvel films, for example. Like that interest in that seems to have just dropped off a cliff. I know there have been some clangers recently, but like, I don't know, is that a broader societal thing where people just don't care as much anymore? Or am I just old?
I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting I'm sure there's some statistics somewhere that could say whether going to the cinema is on the decline. I mean, if you look at the number of big feature films that are coming out now that are actually being made by, they have a very, very limited theatrical run, and then they go straight to streaming platforms.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Has the business model just changed? Yeah. Because I was speaking to somebody the other day about TV work and how, like, apparently the industry at the moment for TV, and I would assume that this extends to film as well, is in a really bad place. Like, the motto is basically survive until 2025, which I was slightly surprised by. And apparently that's like a hangover from the pandemic, but it's also cost of living. Like, I think there's just less money going around on these projects, and it's not exactly essential, and I think studios are tightening their belts and cutting budgets and things like that. So it's just the large scale entertainment that we're used to having on film and TV just at the moment seems like it's just not viable. And I don't know if that's like just a temporary thing and we'll have a big resurgence at some point, or if that is just the new normal. Is the new normal YouTube videos, TikToks, and lower production quality things on streaming services?
We're asking and trying to answer all of the serious questions, aren't we, today?
I still don't know what socially happened in the late Middle Ages in England.
To be fair, I don't think anybody does.
Truth is whatever we say it is. We'll just become academics, and I don't know. But you know what the dream is? To be not a modern academic, but to be like an ancient Greek academic. I just want to be a guy who has like, I lay in a bath for a while and I had these thoughts about the universe. Let me print them and I will become the most famous person in my town. You know, like who doesn't want that lifestyle?
Yeah. Pretty cushy.
But what we should do, however, the lifestyle that we really want is thanking the wonderful people who support us on patreon.com/the Wikicast. Top lad.
Yes, Simon, you're absolutely right. It's time to say an enormous thank you to those who support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Wikicast. What does Patreon do? It enables this podcast to exist. It pays for our hosting, it pays for our phenomenal editor, Fergus, and for the price of less than a coffee per month, you can ensure that we keep doing this silly thing, what we do. You could be a top dog or a top cat supporter, and if you do that, your names are lovingly read out by Simon and myself, and I'd like to do that now with obviously...
Lovingly.
I'm going to make them all loving. Obviously, I'm going to do the best pet, which is undisputedly top dog. So without further ado, I'd like to say an enormous thank you to Jay Wright, Ben McMurtry, Codzo, Colin J. Brown, Lexi at front desk, Aaron Jorgensen, Naf LaRock, Andrian with an N Chan, Ben Caples, Martin Narciso, Lexi at front desk's boss, Amy Bonney, Sophie, Carnav, I'm stuck in a PhD and I blame Simon, Dan Nelson, Riley Stray, and Gentle Grudge. Thank you so much.
And I'd like to thank Will Janice Humphreys. Actually, I don't know how comfortable I feel.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I felt a bit weird there.
Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one.
It was the proximity to the microphone of and I'd like to. It got quite sort of like grunty.
Thanks coming to you. Yeah, that's just know that the love is there, but it's not gonna be detectable in my voice. Oh, it's like talking to my mum. Okay, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Will Janice Humphreys, James S. Sorry, Mum, if you're listening. Rents Kirk, Simon P, Oliver Burkhart, Nathan Flaherty, Layla Medina, Lord Lewis Bassingdale of Anitsford and its surrounding provinces, Jack Easton, Izzy CC, Nafi Iftikhar, Dame Valerie III, Dan Hanvey, Colm Mansfield, Christopher Betterton, Lexi at Front Desk's arch enemy, Isabella, Anna Reifer, and the Kyrene on caffeine.
Gosh, thank you so much, everyone, for all you do to support us. We'll try and be more regular in the future.
We can't promise that. Top lad. Right, let me log into the old inbox.
Well, we've certainly got a lot of dreck and shit in the pipeline, and that's just messages from the viewership. No, I'm joking.
So we find ourselves in Correspondence Corner, and we've got a couple of emails from our wonderful readership. Thank you very much if you've emailed in. We're going to start with an email here from Elspeth. Hang on. It's actually Elspeth Mora Esquire. Parentheses, I earned this. I am a barrister when I'm not on the dole. We'll see where this goes. It has the subject headline, Greetings from one of the coldest capitals in the world, in the coldest, loyalist colony. Dear Messieurs Clark and Moore, first I must extend my compliments to Mr. Clark. Thank you. I am delighted to hear that Pixel Wife was safely delivered of a Pixel child. Secondly, I wish to submit a piece for Mr. Moore's consideration as a choral piece of the week. Canada's oldest Christmas carol, sung in 3 of our nation's many tongues.
Wow.
The Huron Carol. So this is I realised I think we must have missed this from a previous episode because this email is dated November 30th, so before Christmas. Hence why it's a Christmas carol. So apologies that we seem to have missed this. Let me give this a listen.
One eternity later.
Okay, I've listened to 5 seconds, and I immediately like it.
Okay, I'm going to click on it also and have a listen. You may hear this through the speaker. Oh, yeah.
Right? That's really cool.
That's really cool. Oh, and it's sung in that French and English. So if I skip ahead.
Well, it's Wendat, French and English.
Yeah. What a cool thing.
Thank you, Elspeth, for that. That is really cool. And I'm going to listen to that in full after we finish doing this. So, wow. Oh, okay, wow. Okay. Elspeth continues. Third, I must offer some recommendations from a parent. I gave birth to my first child, a daughter, on November 6th. Ever grateful I was not faced to be a Tudor queen. So not 3 weeks before sending this email, Elspeth became a parent. Congratulations.
Wow.
Congratulations. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
I hope that you're getting more sleep than we are at the moment. Recommendations from a parent for a parent's review in Critics Corner. If your babe still needs contact naps, may I recommend an Ergo baby carrier and a big exercise ball. Put the baby in the carrier and bounce on the ball until they get their bubbles out and fall asleep. Then just proceed with your usual activities, just with the addition of a 6 to 12 pound weight. Oh, my carrier has a poppy on it because my daughter was due on November 11th. Oh, that's lovely.
That is lovely.
I really like that. So we have a carrier. We have one. I love having her in the carrier. It's just one of my favorite things because she just sort of hangs there. And like when she's awake, she can cuddle you a bit. It's really, really nice. But I've not heard of the tip with an exercise ball. So we might have to try that. Interesting. And then Elspeth concludes. Elspeth has attached some pictures here. And I don't know if this is the same with your email client, Dan, but they are enormous.
Yes.
These pictures are zoomed into like 400%. And I have to click in order to actually see the whole thing. So, there's the baby carrier with the poppy on it. Oh, that's lovely. And they have said, postscript, I am lucky to know some Canadian climate activists doing great. Check out Andrew Luber's film Co-Extinction and check out the work of the Assembly of First Nations. I've heard of the Assembly of First Nations, but not of Andrew. So, and there's the exercise ball, I see. Interesting. Wow, I mean, so that's given me something to look up. Andrew Luber, and also perhaps trying something out with the exercise ball with the babe with the power. Elspeth, thank you so much for writing in, and congratulations. I hope that parenthood is treating you well. In return, as previously discussed, I can recommend Hey Dougie.
Absolutely. And we have an email here from our very own editor, Simon.
Fergus? Why are you emailing in? Why are you not editing the show right now?
Get back to work. Fergus writes, yo, just reminded me I meant to send you these in regards to the most amazing place chat in the pod. Have been lucky to go to some cool places, and this is certainly one of them. Took a boat out to St Kilda a few years back. The village was really interesting, but there was a lot of activity going on and construction happening. But the sea stacks a few kilometres away were mental. Don't really capture it in the photos, but thousands of birds circling overhead. Couldn't see the top at one point because of the clouds. It was like a cathedral peeking out of the sea or something. Made you feel tiny. Wrote a piece about it later. Wow, that's crazy.
Oh, and has he included the link to the piece?
Yeah, he has, and there's a picture. Amazing.
Yes, so we talked about St Kilda on, I believe it was I just looked it up, I believe it was episode 120, because there's a great book written about it by Tom Steele. Incredible history of the place. But yeah, they're the tallest sea cliffs in the UK, St Kilda. And it's like one of the most important seabird breeding sites in the world. I've not actually seen pictures of it this close up before. That is wild. Really beautiful.
Well, I spent New Year in Scotland, which is like the first time I've ever been to Scotland, and it was completely stunning, and I desperately want to go back.
It was the first time you'd ever been?
Yeah, basically. I think, I was, the only other time I've been was when I was not quite 1, and my parents went to the Outer Hebrides, so it doesn't really count. But other than that, I've never been.
Right. Wow, okay. So yes, I love Scotland, absolutely love it. If I could make it work, and if my whole family could move up there, I would 100% just relocate to Scotland probably. But tell you what, if I remember, I will try to put these photos on the Wikicast Instagram because it is a beautiful place, St Kilda.
Yeah.
Tell you what, Dan, we do have some more emails here, but I have noticed that we've been recording for quite a while,
yes.
And we should probably save these for next time.
Yes.
So that just leaves us to ask, what have we learned today?
Today, Simon, we learned about England in the Middle Ages.
Did we?
Well, Sort of.
Our audience learned more about our club-going habits than they did about England in the late Middle Ages.
Well, yeah, today I think we've sort of set new records for the number of sort of tangential comments and links and things that we've been talking about. We've covered an awful lot. We spoke about the upsetting program that your daughter has been enjoying.
Mm-hmm. And me as well, I'd like to point out.
Yes. Bluey cropped up, as Bluey is so often wont to do.
Bluey, hey Dougie, and definitely not Messi goes to Okido.
Yeah, oh gosh, frightening. We had a choral piece of the week, which was, of course...
Handel's Messiah.
Since by Man Came Jeff.
And we talked about, oh gosh, I don't even remember, Dan. This one is complete spaghetti of different plot threads in my head.
Absolutely.
And just saying that has made me think I need to have lunch.
Yeah, I'm starving. I haven't had any breakfast.
Yeah, you messaged me to say, well, why don't we record at 11 and then we can roll into lunch? And I was just like, oh, but we just do some mukbang.
Yeah.
Just you know, we'll end the podcast with 30 minutes of just eating sounds. We won't talk, obviously. We'll just both separately record. It's
like that, you know, the VidCon vlog when we were both eating kebabs.
Yes.
There is so much like chewing intensifies as a you know. Readers, if you're not familiar with this video, then go and watch it because that whole trip was brilliant. But
loved it.
It was quite a spicy kebab.
It was, because you had a kebab and I was just having chips, and we sort of took it upon ourselves to have a drunken food review after getting in. That was 7 years ago, by the way.
That's insane. And the wine and cheese board in the Rijksmuseum.
Oh, the Rijksmuseum. And funny you should bring this up today, because I am later today recording an interview with Hank Green for another project.
Cool.
Hank Green of John. They've got tickets.
This guy's got tokens.
Oh, tokens, that was it.
Oh, well, I do pass on my best. Not that he'll have any idea who I am, but I do hope he's well.
Yes, I'll definitely make sure to say Dan Moore sends his best. I'll just see what he says. Well, that's all for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice, join the Discord, and if you'd like to see our faces, check out our Instagram.
Uncanny Valley children's TV shows, your favourite period of the late Middle Ages, and other thoughts on the show can be sent to us at spongyelectric@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Join us again for another tumble down the wiki rabbit hole, and we'll see you next time.